What's going on, people? We are Tottenham TV and we are here for our final match preview stream of the season. It is Sheffield United against Spurs at Bramall Lane. With Europa League football on the line, we do need a point just to secure Europa League, with Chelsea breathing down our necks. So any slip up in this game really could cost us Europa League. So we have to just get the job done. We really do, because Chelsea are on good form. You know how the score works right now. We're going to go through predicted lineup, then match preview. But welcome to everyone today. And look, I feel like I got a bit of a spring in my step today, just because I've been wanting this end of season for so long, and it is finally here. I think us as a fan base just kind of need this end of season.
Yeah, I think we keep talking about, progress, project and stuff. I think we're all ready for the next phase, I think it's fair to say.
100%. Next phase, next season.
Yeah.
Let's bring it on. But the games don't actually stop after this, because we do have Newcastle in a couple of days' time in a pre-season friendly out in Australia.
Yeah.
But anyway, let's get into our predicted lineup. And Ange has been speaking in a press conference. He's given us a bit of team news. So what we got?
The only doubt, which from a player who was available on Tuesday, is Giovanni Lo Celso. Surprise, surprise. He's maybe not going to be available on the weekend. He's going to have a late test, and we'll see if he's available. Obviously, the rest of the long-term absentees, Richarlison, Basuma, Doggy, Forster, Sessegnon, Werner, Solomon and Ben Davis all remain out for the last game of the season. So Giovanni Lo Celso, it looks like his last game for Spurs could be him being injured.
Yeah, if you bring up that list again for 1 second, how many of those players actually do you think have played their last game for Spurs?
I reckon I've got a feeling Solomon's going to leave. I reckon we're not going to renew Werner. I reckon Lo Celso, Sessegnon we're going to try and sell.
Richarlison,
I think there's a good chance he's going to leave as well. So quite apart from Udogie, I think Basuma's probably going to stay, and I got a feeling Davis is probably going to end up staying. So probably those three. So
only 3 of them.
3.
Only 3 of them are going to stay, you reckon? But anyway, let's get into the predicted lineup. We're going to go for a 4-3-3 formation as per usual, and obviously in goal is going to be Big Vic.
Yeah, no surprises. Sheffield United, to be fair to them, they've actually been scoring quite a few goals recently, despite obviously their poor form. So Vic might have some work to do, especially with Brereton Diaz in the form he's in. So, but obviously he's going to have to start the last game of the season.
On right back, we are sticking with Pedro Porro. I think he has been going through a little bit of a dip of recent weeks, but no, sorry, not of recent weeks, but of the last couple of months in terms of his offensive displays. But I do think there has been signs of him maybe getting back to his best. Let's hope we can see it this week.
Yeah, and I thought he had a pretty decent game against Man City, albeit he did give away that penalty late on. Doesn't look like we're going to be are we going to have a farewell for Emerson Royale? Maybe a goodbye wave, goodbye match. Don't think he'll be starting this game, but obviously Porro has to start, and I think he could be very vital for us in this game.
Right centre back, obviously going to be Cuti Romero, one of the players that have really stood up for us for the entirety of the season. Yeah,
and a lot of people giving him our player of the season, a lot of player of the season shouts for him. I think he's been pretty consistent, apart from maybe the Chelsea game. I thought he had a great game again on Tuesday as well. So he's going to have I don't think he have too difficult a game in this one, but I do expect Sheffield United to come at him a bit.
Yeah. Left centre-back is Dragusin. Really good display against Manchester City. Definitely his best in the Spurs shirt, and let's hope he can carry that on.
Yeah, and I was actually really impressed with him. He was really getting involved in a lot of the duels. He looked a lot more comfortable on the ball than he has in his previous starts as well. So Radu, I think, retains his place.
And then making up that back four on the left-hand side of the defence, as you can see, it's Mickey van der Ven. I don't think maybe his game against Man City was as impressive as that cameo performance in the previous game against Burnley, but he is coming up against Sheffield United, so maybe he can see himself get a bit more forward.
Yeah, and I'm thinking exactly, will have a bit more license to get forward as well. Obviously, he's fresh off the back of a call up to the Dutch squad, potentially ahead of the Euros as well. He's in the provisional squad, so hopefully a confidence boost for him as well. And just make sure he doesn't get any injuries on the last day.
In the number 6, I don't think it's going to be Sarr. I think it'll probably be Bentancur, right?
Yeah, Bentancur in the number 6, which obviously Højbjerg did play there on Tuesday, but we're thinking with I don't think we're going to play 4 midfielders. I do think we're going to go back to a front 3. So one of the midfielders will have to come out, and we are thinking it is going to be Højbjerg coming out. So Bentancur playing in the number 6.
Yeah, and I actually thought Bentancur was really impressive in the game against Manchester City before he got taken off. He got taken off because of the booking and because of his inability to make challenges because of that booking, and you saw how frustrated he was. So I really hope that... and I actually could see a case of Bentancur starting in that position as well, again, in the number 8, because of how impressive he was, to be honest. I actually personally feel that he's going to go the same midfield as he played against Man City, but we're going for Bentancur and Sarr in the 6 and the 8 for argument's sake.
So okay, yeah. So you don't. All right, fine. So Bentancur in the number 8. Sarr.
No,
so
sorry.
Sarr
I think
8.
Højbjerg is going to start.
Yeah, Højbjerg.
I'm saying for this video purposes, because what you're saying, we're going for Sarr in the 8 and Bentancur in the 6.
Right. And Sarr, I think, has been playing quite well last couple of games as well. I think getting back to his best as well. So he's going to have to put a lot of energy into this game. But hopefully he should be able to dominate in midfield this time.
And then to make up that middle 3 in the number 10, James Maddison. His performances of late, last couple of games, really starting, I wouldn't say completely back to his best, but you're seeing him start to improve those performance levels for sure.
Yeah, I thought he had a pretty good game against Man City. I know some people I saw were quite disappointed, but I thought he played pretty well, and I thought he was looking back to his sharpest. I think he's created quite a few chances. I really hope he has a really good end to the season in terms of his last game, because I do think his position at the Euros is in doubt at this point. So needs a big ending, and hopefully can push his way into that squad.
Right-hand side of the attack, we are going to go for Brennan Johnson. In my opinion, I think he's been a bit blunt of late. He's been doing a lot of running. He's been aggressive. He's been trying to take on his man. He's been winning the ball high up the pitch, but his end product has been quite frustrating.
Yeah, I think he's been kind of a lot of the time moved to the left-hand side recently. I don't think he suits that position as much. I think when he's been on the right, he's been decent. I thought on Tuesday he gave Gvardiol a difficult ride, but could have maybe done better in a few situations. But I do think he's... when he plays on the right, he does look a bit better, and I'm backing him to really take the game to Sheffield United on Sunday.
In the number 9 position, or should I say in the false number 9 position, we are going for Dejan Kulusevski. Really good cameo against Manchester City in the final 20 minutes, and we're backing him to cause Sheffield United some problems with that physical presence up top.
Yeah, I think this is the way we got to go in this one. I don't think there's a need to put another midfielder in there like against Man City. I think we can go a bit more offensive, and I think Kulusevski showed in that little cameo that he's capable of playing that position, and showed a different maybe option we have there, especially with his physicality, and as well we know he's got a bit more of ability to drop deep because he's played that number 10 role as well. So we're going to go with Deki as the false 9.
And then to make up that final 11, I think you can guess who we're going to put on the left wing, and that is going to be the captain, Heung-min Son.
Yeah, definitely. Who else? And again, I've been impressed with him on the left in cameo appearances. I think last 20 minutes against Liverpool, he was really good on the left. Last 20 minutes against Burnley, really good on the left. But when he started there, I still haven't seen a really good performance from him just yet, apart from maybe the Newcastle one back in December. So I want to see a good end to the season for him in that position, and hopefully, can add to his goal contribution tally, which is, still considerably high.
I feel like, though, this has been like a bit of a story of the season at times, where we've brought players on late in games, last 20 minutes, in maybe positions where they haven't been starting in, and then they have a really good performance, and then they start in that position, and then they put in a bit of a lackluster performance. I feel like this has just been a theme throughout the season.
Well, it's always going to be harder because when you're in playing late in games in certain positions, you're up against tired legs more often than not, and they give you a bit more space, gives you a bit more ability to run at them. And then when you're starting against these defenders, they're fresher, it's a lot more difficult to get that space, and maybe that's why we're seeing that.
Well, let's run through that predicted lineup with you guys one more time. It's Big, Vicario in goal, Porro right back, Van de Ven left back, Romero and Dragushin in the middle, Bentancur, Sarr and Maddison in the middle 3, with Son, Brennan Johnson supporting Kulusevski up top. Score prediction?
I said 2-1. It's been the scoreline against the relegation teams at the moment for Spurs. We haven't seemed to beaten them too much by more than, albeit it is the last game of the season. Maybe Sheffield United will be a bit more offensive, let the handbrake off because, nothing to lose. Might as well try and score some goals for your fans. So maybe it'll be a bit more open than I expect. But knowing Tottenham, they're always going to make it a bit difficult. So I've gone for a 2-1 win.
Yeah, I feel like Sheffield United are going to try and go out there with nothing to fear, nothing to play for. Handbrake's going to be off a little bit. And they're going to try put on a performance for their fans, and I think that that's going to leave a couple of gaps for us, and I think we can exploit that. So I think Spurs are going to put on a bit of a showing last game of the season. I think it's going to be a really good game of football, and I'm going for 3-1 to Tottenham Hotspur. So let me know your score predictions and predicted lineups in the comments section below. But let's get straight into it, and let's get into the match preview. Sheffield United against Tottenham, final game of the season. The only thing that is riding on it is to Spurs to confirm Europa League football. We need a point. If we don't get a point, Chelsea are really up our arses, to be honest. They're on a really good run of form. And if we don't win this game, Chelsea will take that Europa League spot off us. And there is a chance that we can finish.
We can draw.
Yeah, I'm saying I said if we don't take the point.
I thought you said we don't win.
I did say that afterwards. But I think that there is a case to say if we finish 6th, we can still get Europa League, but we need Man United not to win the FA Cup, which I think is probably the most likely scenario. So we should be okay either way, but we need to get the point just to confirm it on the final day, so we're not going into that FA Cup final worrying about that Europa League spot or not. Sheffield United, coming into this, I wouldn't say on good form, but they definitely know how to find the back of the net, wouldn't they? They're losing every game at the moment, but they seem to be going like 1-0 up in every game.
Yeah, I've been watching them play a few games, and especially against relegation threatened teams like Forest, Burnley, and in those games, if it wasn't for a bit of poor finishing and a bit of luck, they could have easily been 2 or 3 goals up in those games before the opposition got back into it. Obviously, they've conceded over 100 goals, so clearly they're a very, very bad defensive team, one of the worst we've ever seen. I think, is it the worst we've ever seen? I don't know if anyone else has conceded over 100 goals before, like in a 38-game season. I'd be surprised.
No, I think Swindon did in the early days, but I think that was about it. But that wasn't a 38-game season.
In 38 game, I think they might be the worst we've ever seen. So if we can't score goals against this lot, there is obviously a big, big problem. But they have been creating chances recently, and Brereton Diaz, I think, since coming in January, has scored, 6 goals for Sheffield United, and he's looked an absolute handful. He's never stops running, and he's always a bit of a threat for them. So then it's not going to be a complete walk in the park, but if we can take the lead and go into that second half, look to extend it, I think they've definitely shown ability to crumble, that's for sure.
Yeah, if you bring up that form table, you could just see how bad the Sheffield United form is in terms of the results that they've been getting. 5 losses on the bounce, 5 losses away from home, no wins in their last 5 home games, with 2 draws in there, conceded 17 to our conceding 12, but they have only scored 1 less goal than us. So they've scored 5, we've scored 6, and we've obviously notoriously been very blunt in the last 5 games. So they are scoring goals, but it's not like we've been blunt and we've been complaining about it.
Yeah.
So they're still scored less than us. So I think we're just kind of comparing that to maybe what the narrative is around Sheffield United, probably. But when you look at it, these teams down the bottom, we actually haven't been given an easy ride in any of the game, apart from the Burnley game in the opening stage of the season when we batted them 5-2. We go away to Luton. Obviously, we go down to 10 men, but we struggle to win that game with Van der Ven scoring in the second half to snatch it for us. Luton at home, 2-1 in the last stages of the game. Burnley at home, last stage of the game we had to win. Sheffield United at home, we scored 2 goals in stoppage time. So what is it about these teams that have gone down that we've struggled against?
Obviously, we have gotten results, so getting the wins is the most important thing, but definitely we haven't battered them. To be fair, we haven't really battered many teams this season. I don't think it's just the relegation teams, but I think it is a case of these kind of teams, apart from obviously Burnley, who are probably the most likely team to be a bit more expansive. These kind of teams do like to sit back. They do like to clog up the central areas and make things very, very difficult for you and play a low block. And that's something that this season we've definitely struggled when teams are doing it effectively. And obviously, the challenges these teams have brought, we have been able to overcome because we've won most of the game, all the games pretty much. Yeah. If we beat Sheffield United, we won all of them, haven't we?
Yeah.
So I wouldn't necessarily say we've struggled because we're going to win all the games, but hasn't been a walk in the park, I think it's fair to say. And maybe we could have won a few of those games more comfortably than we did. I would argue Luton, we could have easily been 4-0 up before went down to 10 men. Burnley, that game deserved to win, but that was probably the game that was the closest because we didn't really... we created chances in the last 20 minutes, but it was even before then. Luton, we could have easily won that game 4-1. Sheffield United at home, they pretty much scored with their only shot. We could have easily won that game a lot more comfortably as well. So I think all the games we've had, I think you can safely say we were never really in danger of not winning, apart from maybe the Sheffield United at home when we had to score 2 late on. But in all those games, we definitely deserved to win, and we probably should have won all those games more comfortably than we did.
Yeah, we do deserve to win, but each one of these games have the same tale of, we don't take our chances and we just make it extremely difficult for ourselves when it doesn't need to be. I just really hope this one isn't the same. And away from home, we've been not great this season, let's put it that way. So is there any kind of fear of you that it's going to be a really tough day at Bramall Lane?
The only fear is if we turn up not taking it seriously, thinking we can just win. And then on that occasion, they're going to... I know they're already down, but they're going to be giving in their all to give their fans something to cheer about after a long, really difficult season for their fans. So they're going to be, I really believe, busting a gut to really put everything on the line. And if we don't take this seriously and we just drift through this game and don't really put it to bed early, I do get the feeling that Sheffield United could... grow into the game a bit. They have a propensity to create chances. We've seen that recently with a few goals they've been scoring. They definitely, even though they've scored 5 goals, they've created a lot of chances, a lot of chances. Diaz could have had a lot more goals than he has in recent weeks. So there is a slight part of me in my head thinking, the way we've approached some games recently, if we really don't turn up and just basically allow this game to drift, there is a slight possibility things could turn against us. But I'm hoping that I'm confident that won't happen. But there is a possibility because Sheffield United, I think the results, and I think they're better than the results have been showing. I don't think when I watch them, they deserve to get battered every week. But clearly, when you're getting battered on the frequency they are, it's not a coincidence. But I do watch them and feel like they're much more in the games than the scoreline suggests a lot of the time.
Maybe for certain periods, but I mean, like, once the game gets away from them, or once they concede a goal to go to level the game up or to go 2-1 down, they do have a tendency to just completely fall apart. That's the reality with Sheffield United.
They capitulate.
And that's what we need to be looking at this weekend for sure. And you're looking at the past 5 games against them. Obviously, we have won 3 in a row. That 3-1 in July 2020. I think that's when Harry Kane scored a consolation at the last minute, wasn't it? We went 3-0 down.
That was the famous game where Mora got penalised for a handball for falling on the ball.
Yeah, that was it. And 1-1 in November 19. I don't remember that game.
Poch's last game.
Was that Poch's last game? Do you remember the last time that we lost to them at Bramall Lane before that?
2007?
I think so. With Jermaine Genius.
Yeah, Jermaine Genius opened the scoring.
Yeah, we went 1-0 up in the second minute with Jermaine Genius, and Hulse and Jagielka scored a penalty with half an hour to go.
Classic Spurs.
Yeah, it is classic Spurs. Let's hope that doesn't rear its head this weekend. But, yeah... With Spurs and the form we're on, it's got to be no excuse to go into this game and not win. And we got to be putting them under pressure. Even if we go 1-0 down, there's going to be clear avenues for us to win this game with their frailties at the back, with their tendency to completely let the game slip by. We've got no excuses to not go and seal Europa League football on Sunday.
In reality, we don't have any excuses not to really batter them and create loads of chances, considering how they've been playing this season. And even though, as I just said before, they've probably been more in games than the scoreline suggests, doesn't mean that they don't really concede lots of chances. They do, and I think they concede a lot of good quality chances as well. So there's not really an excuse for Tottenham not to win this game. They're statistically one of the worst teams to ever be in the Premier League. They're only 5 points better off than that famous Derby team which is definitely the worst team that ever came into the Premier League back in 2008. So obviously, if we don't win this game, it's embarrassing. Questions will have to be asked. But look, as long as we get that Europa League spot, then we can, you take that into next season and you should build in it. But I have to say, if we don't win this game, then especially with the form we're on, I mean, I think Andrew will probably start next season with a bit of pressure on him.
If you bring up the Sheffield United predicted lineup, I mean, apart from Berrington Diaz, I thought Cameron Archer did start the season fairly well, but he's kind of dropped off. Apart from Berrington Diaz, has there been any standout performers for you?
Harmer. I think Harmer's been really good, actually, really underrated. I think he's actually quite a good technical midfielder. Also got a bit of bite about him, gets stuck in. He's got quite a good left foot. Obviously, he scored against Tottenham back in the game earlier in the season with a really nice finish, which on his left foot fell to him on the half volley, smashed it into the far corner. I actually think he's been a fairly consistent performer for them. I've been quite impressed with him. Other than that, Bogle on the right, he's been okay.
He seems to get a booking every game.
He
that
does seem
Bogle.
to get, he gets booked a lot. Not really too many. You know who I like, actually? Is he injured? McAtee. McAtee's a done nice little player. He's a little like number 10. They signed from Man City. I think he's on loan. And he's actually a good little player who, if you allow him time on the ball, he can hurt you. And I've seen him score some nice goals this season. He was quite good in the Championship last season as well. So he's a good little player. But apart from that, I mean, I don't have too many players I'm looking at thinking they've done well this season.
Do you think any of those players you mentioned get moves back to the Premier League in the summer?
McAtee, I wouldn't be surprised.
Well, he's going back to Man City, right?
Yeah, I would assume so. But I wouldn't be surprised if they sell him to a Premier League team. Anyone else? To be honest, I don't even know if Diaz and Archer are going to get moves. I think Diaz obviously came from the Championship. But to be fair, he's done well 6 months, so maybe someone.
Berrington Diaz, wasn't he in La Liga for Villarreal?
Sorry, he's been in the Championship before for Blackburn. No, wasn't he in Blackburn?
I'm sure he came from Villarreal.
I can't remember now, because he was at Blackburn. Maybe I can't remember if it was before or after Villarreal. Maybe you're right. Maybe it was Blackburn to Villarreal, then to Sheffield. I think you're probably right. But he didn't do too well at Villarreal. But he's done well back in the Premier League. So maybe they'll take a punt on him, but I don't know. I think there'll still be question marks. Cameron Archer, I think there are question marks about his physicality, despite him being quite a quick player with a nice finish. He's scored some nice goals, but I don't know if anyone's going to take a punt on him to lead their line. So I think you're going to be hard pushed to find. I think maybe Harmer's the best shout of a player who might get a Premier League move.
Yeah, he did. He had a very short spell at Villarreal, only 14 games, 0 goals. And obviously, for Blackburn, he actually had quite a good season with 14 goals in 43 games. So, I don't think he gets a move back to the Premier League unless maybe Ipswich or someone like that go for him. I can see maybe that may be happening, but he's not going to get a move to any team that are in the Premier League as of now. In my opinion. But how do you think
Definitely no defenders given their record. How
do you think they approach this game though? Like, do you think just complete shackles will be off? They're going to completely go for it, last chance saloon in the Premier League, and just try and give their fans a show? Or do you think they're going to try keep it tight and maybe hit us on the counter?
To be honest, from what I've seen from them in the last few weeks, they've let the handbrake off. I think since they've been relegated, they've just tried to score as many goals as possible, and they've conceded a bucket. They've also made a load of chances and probably should have scored more goals than they have scored. So last home game, in their Premier League in their season, give something for the fans to cheer going into next season. I don't think them sitting back and just waiting to lose is going to be anything positive, because they'll probably lose that way anyway. I know Chris Wilder can be quite a pragmatic coach, and I think if there was something on the line here, for sure, he goes super pragmatic and he sits behind 11 men behind the ball and tries to make it hard. And I do think the pattern of the game a lot of the game might fall into that anyway, just because we're going to have a lot of possession. We like to force teams back, so naturally, I think they are going to have a lot of players behind the ball just anyway. But I do think when they do get the chance to attack, they're going to flood players forward, and they are going to really go for it and try and get goals. And I think that's going to play into our hands.
We saw a few different kind of things in the game against Man City, with obviously Van de Ven starting at left back. We saw very different movements from like the likes of Pape Matar and James Maddison, with the way they were rotating in the false number 9 and the 10 and the 8. Do you feel like it's going to be a bit similar because we are predicting Kulusevski to be there, or do you think he'll just strictly be a false number 9 without too much rotation?
I think there'll probably be some rotation. I wouldn't be surprised if people are rotating, given how we played on Tuesday. Although when Decky did come on, he was very much in that position. He didn't move from it too much, I felt, on Tuesday night for that half an hour he was on. So I expect Decky, if he does start, to generally be our striker and try and make those kind of movements. But I wouldn't be surprised if during the game, when we have possession, we're trying to move Sheffield United around. You might see Maddison pick up a position there. You might see Sarr pick up a position there as they all are rotating around. So I do think Decky will be there in general, but I wouldn't be surprised if there are some rotations. Sure.
Yeah, I mean, if we do go and confirm Europa League football tomorrow on Sunday at Bramall Lane, the outlook of the season has got to be positive, doesn't it? You know, everything considered, when all's said and done, 5th spot. When you look at what we were going through start of the season, losing Harry Kane, completely new system, completely new manager, a lot of new players to bed in as well. Surely this season has a positive outlook on it.
Yeah, I think in general, I think it's been a positive season. I do think the way it's fallen flat in the latter stages is disappointing. I'm not even saying the results necessarily. Obviously, the results are be disappointing. It's just more the performances, how we've really collapsed, let's be honest, since the Villa game. And the level of performance has dropped so markedly. And we've just completely let our standards slip. A lot of especially off the ball in our defensive play, we've completely let our standards go. We've lost that bit of aggression in a lot of games this season. And, the Newcastle, Fulham, Chelsea games were really, really diabolical. To be honest, they were absolutely shambolic. Some of the performance levels in that one. So that is a shame, and that's something that Ange has got to be mindful of. Obviously, we're definitely going to give patient enough to give him time, and I think we're all prepared to allow him this process, allow him this bit of time to sort things out, and then go forward next season. And I think some of the football we've played, even as far as Tuesday, we played some brilliant football, and we want to see that on more on a consistent basis. And if we're going to play more like that, then we're going to be delighted with where this team is heading. But at the end of the day, he can't survive if that level of performance we're seeing since April is going to be a consistent theme. And if we're going to see more of that level of performance, he's got to be very careful. He's going to be treading on thin ice very soon if that continues. So I think we're all patient enough to allow this painful rebuild to have this stage. We now got to the end of the year. I think we're all fairly content with where we are. Europa League is what we probably would expect at the beginning of the season. I think it was disappointing considering the position we did put ourselves in. We didn't get Champions League because we probably should have, given the fact that we put ourselves in a position to really take that spot. Is what it is. We didn't grab it. Thankfully, we had such a good start to the season that even though we collapsed, we're still going to probably get a Europa League spot. So I think the positives are there. I don't think it's been, but given the way we've ended, it's probably going to leave a sour taste with a few Spurs fans' mouths, given the performances we've seen at the end of the season. But it's on Ange to change that round. I do think he's got the tools to do it. I do think he's got the way of playing to do it. And hopefully he gets the backing to do it. That's the big question.
Yeah, I mean, what I would say to those fans that if they do have a sour taste in their mouth of finishing 5th at the end of the season, I get it. Since the turn of the year, I think if you bring up a league table since the turn of the year, we're 16th or something. And if you bring up a league table since after the first 10 games, I think we're like 10th or 11th or somewhere around that. So that is a cause for concern. But I think you can see, even though performances have regressed throughout the season, I still think you can see what Ange is trying to do. You can see that the players are behind him, even though it didn't look like for a certain amount of time that they're not. I do think they are behind him. And I think the players that aren't behind him will be out the door sooner rather than later. And I think after him having a year with this squad and everything surrounding the club, he has such a better idea of what needs to happen here. So I think everyone should be backing Ange Postecoglou. Everyone should think he's the right man for the job, because I certainly do, and I think you probably certainly do. And I think the most people that we've spoken to do certainly think that he is the right man for the job. And I think anything other than that is a bit ludicrous at this stage. So I think you're looking at a team going in the right direction. You're looking at a team that does need heavy investment, that does need a lot of change. Is there any players that maybe at the start of the season you were convinced that they are here for the future and that you want them to be here for the future that you're having second doubts about now?
Oh, Basuma, unfortunately. That's the reality. I'm having doubts whether he's going to be a star in this team now. I mean, I think at this point, it's, it looks to me like he's not, unfortunately. It doesn't look like he has the consistency or the mentality to really be a star in the team, which is a massive shame considering we know what levels he can be at and how he started the season. So I've got doubts about him. Who at the beginning of the season was I convinced about, who I don't necessarily am convinced about? In terms of who I think we should sell? Or what's the question?
Or who you don't think is going to be here for the long term, who you think is maybe not right for the project, maybe that has shown themselves this season.
Richarlison, potentially. Yeah, I think he's probably a player who I was obviously a big advocate for, but I'm looking at it now and I don't know if he's got the technical ability to really... I think he's got a good ability to be like a finisher in this team, and I think he could still probably be a 20-goal-a-season player in this team if stayed fit. But when it comes to having this team function in at 100% capacity, I don't know if Richarlison's that guy up front. Where
I think he can't do it from like a squad capacity.
Yeah, I just think to lead the line for us, I don't know if he's the guy to. Because I just think he gives the ball away too much. I think a lot too much. He lacks a bit of technical ability. Where if we had someone who could just trap the ball comfortably, get good layoffs, bring other players into play, and also have that finishing ability, I think that's obviously going to be a lot better. And as well as passing range is really poor as well. He's not a very good passer at all, Richarlison. Someone who obviously better with the ball at his feet, I feel would benefit us. So Richarlison's also a player. Who else? I mean, obviously Højbjerg I was never really convinced about. Emerson I was never really convinced about. Obviously one of them is Decky potentially, but I'm a big believer in Decky. I think he's so good that I think he's really worth keeping around. And I think Ange really likes him as well, because there's a reason why he's one of the top players for minutes played this season. He's a player who Ange really trusts. So I think he is going to be here long-term, Decky, to be honest. So apart from that, I like a lot of the players that we have. We just have to make sure that they're getting up to speed. I think there's been a lot of issues surrounding a lot of these players. Maddison's had injuries, Bentacle's getting back from injuries. Sarr had the AFCON and then he had a back injury. So there's all these little things that have led to inconsistencies, I feel, and led to performance levels dropping, and hopefully that can really be sorted out next season.
And on the flip side of that, in terms of like players that have maybe surprised us of how good they actually are, obviously you're looking at Van de Ven and Romero. I think this has probably been Romero's best season in the Spurs shirt. He seems to be getting better and better. Van de Ven, the way he just came in and flourished straight from the off, even from that Brentford game, you saw like what a good player he can be, and he's getting better and better and better. There are concerns about maybe if you can keep him fit throughout a season with those hamstring problems. But apart from them two, is there anyone that's really surprised you?
Udogie, the fact that he's just really cemented his spot so comfortably. I remember at the beginning of pre-season, I really thought there was going to be a bit of a battle between him and like Reguilon at the start in terms of getting that number one, but Udogie just blew him out of the water so quickly that we even got rid of Reguilon. So I think the fact that he's been so good at such a young age, remember he's only 20, nailed down that left back spot so comfortably.
It's mad great. When you look at him. He looks like a fully fledged Premier League player that's been there year in, year out, especially with his physicality as well. It's incredible.
Been brilliant. I don't know if I would say Sarr surprised me, but obviously he's been brilliant. He's been so. I think his consistency has surprised me. That he's been so consistently at a high level, especially in the first half of the season. He was just putting in at least minimum 7 out of 10 performances week in, week out.
I mean,
and for such a young player, I know we saw potential in him last season, but to see that at such a consistent level has been really impressive as well.
I think you've got to say Sar's a surprise, one of the surprises of the season, because before this season, he hardly had any game time. We saw it in flashes. We saw it in the San Siro, a couple of games here and there, but we never thought like he was going to be what he's turned out to be this season in terms of a fully fledged first team member and one of the first midfielders on the team sheet.
Yeah, and at such a young age to have nailed down that spot, keeping good players out of the team is very, very impressive, and just shows the belief and the quality that we have in him.
And at one point in the season when he was out and he came back, all of us were just like, wow, we've missed him so much, and he's been such an integral part of this team this season. Another player that I would mention, just because of what I said about him in the preseason, is Pedro Porro. The way he's kind of taken to this new role, inverting defensive performances have been getting better and better through the season as well. So I think he's also a player that's really improved this season. It's mad to me as well that we're sitting here talking about basically our back four. You're talking about Pedro Porro, Destiny Adoghi, Van de Ven and Romero. And then you just look at the amount of goals we've conceded.
Yeah, and I don't think it's their fault necessarily. I think a lot of it is to do with how we defend as a team. And I think we make it way too easy for the opposition to get at our back four. Whereas I feel like that's a big difference between us and Man City and Arsenal, is when they lose possession, they do the right things defensively. They get him back in position. They make sure that they're fullbacks aren't exposed. They cover their centre backs. At the moment, we're in a period where we're trying to get things right, but when it comes to when we're being braked on and transitioned, we're way too easy to transition on, or way too easy to get got at. And whenever we lose the ball, it seems as though within a few seconds the team is in on our back four, and they're way too easy to create chances against. And I do think that will come. I remember it was very, very similar under Pochettino in his first season. We played some really nice football at times, but we were so easy to score against, and we conceded way too many chances. And there were some games in that season we got battered. I remember even near the end of the season, we got battered, I think 3-0 by Stoke. I remember near the end of the season, and even I remember at that point people were questioning Poch, whether he's the right guy. But he had a pre-season. We ironed a few things out, and we got a lot better for it. So I also think it's going to be. We have to be very careful though to not go overboard if we don't start the season with 5 wins out of 5, or start the season the same way we started this season. Because just because we're going to improve doesn't mean we're now going to win 38 games next season. You know what I mean? We're still
all right, 37.
You know, it's still going to be a process, and it's still going if you remember Poch's second season, that was the season we challenged Leicester for the title. We started that season with not winning any of our first 4 games. I think we lost the opening game to United.
We drew the next 3.
And we drew the next 3. And at that point, the Knives were out for him, I remember. The Knives were really out for him at that point. And was like, he's had a season.
Was that first game was QPR, right? The game that he won?
That was his first season. In his second season, the first game was Old Trafford. We lost 1-0. And then we drew 2-2 to Stoke. We drew 0-0 at Everton. We drew another game, I can't remember off the top of my head. But some poor draws as well. We played okay. I remember watching the games. We actually played well, but we weren't getting the results. And I remember everyone at the time, everyone was saying he's had a season and now he's had 4 games and we haven't won any of them. Is he he's going to go? And all the memories of 2 points from 8 games under one day Ramos start flooding back. You're thinking, oh God, is Poch going to be out? But then, 5th game onwards, we really started to.
Who was that 5th game? Who was the win?
I think, if I remember rightly, we beat Sunderland. Ryan Mason scored.
Oh, I remember that game.
We beat Sunderland 1-0. And then we went on a really good run. I think we went on to beat City 4-1 at home. And then we started
Kane
rolling.
scored that game, didn't he?
Against City.
Against Sunderland.
Mason scored.
Was it 1-0?
Yeah.
Oh, 1-0 Mason.
Mason got our first win of the season. And then we went on a bit of a roll. When then all of a sudden, everything started coming together. The wins started matching the performances. So all I'm saying is, obviously, we want improvement next season, and we should demand that for sure. We should look at progress, but I think we should just also be careful that if we get off to a bit of a shaky start, don't everyone lose their shit, essentially.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the majority of Spurs fans have bought into this project now, and I think that goes without saying. We got to trust it. We got to trust it. Even if we have a bit of a dodgy start, we just have to go for it and believe in the manager, because we have seen, first 10 games of the season, that sample size was just breathtaking to watch at times, the majority of those games. So if we can get to anywhere near those levels with the additions that we're going to make this summer, we have to have a good window. We have to have a really good window this summer if we've got ambitions to take this project onto the next level. And wants to be in a title race next season. I mean, surely that's a bit deluded, isn't it?
Yeah, you're always going to be deluded. If Arteta told you he was going to be in a title race the year before, you would call him deluded as well. If Klopp told you the year before his team was in a title race, that they were going to be in a title race, you would have called him deluded as well. If Poch said he was going to be in a title race when he finished 5th, you would have called him deluded. So as much as we think right now it's going to be very unlikely that we're going to close the gap on the top 3, first of all, we know Klopp's leaving. Liverpool going to be in transition. Maybe it won't be as difficult to close the gap on them. And it's all about our recruitment. And obviously, we know that Arsenal and City are behemoths at the moment. They're unbelievable sides who are years ahead of us in the project. But if we recruit right, and we do back Postecoglou, and we get the right players in, playing some of the football we have been playing, and if another year of Udogie and Sarr and Van der Ven all had a year under their belt, and they're going to improve a lot as well. I mean, never say never. That's all I'm going to say. I'll never rule it out until I see it. Obviously, if I'm sitting here right now, are we going to be a title race? Obviously, my answer is going to be no, because there's no evidence that we're going to be in a title race. But maybe we sign Mbappe, and then what? Maybe we will be in a title race. You know what I mean?
Yeah, Mbappe to Spurs. Here we go.
I'm just saying, you know what's going to happen. Obviously, we're not going to sign Mbappe, but who knows what's going to happen in the summer? That can change a lot of things.
But you got to look at next season. The competition is going to be even more fierce than it was this season. You're going to have Arsenal, who are going to be, right bang up there again. And if they don't end up winning the league this year, that's 2 title races. They've lost 2 years running, so they're going to be bang up for it again, trying to win that title for the 3rd successive year. Man City are going to be there, which what the press is saying, it could be Pep Guardiola's last season at Man City next season. You're going to be Chelsea, who have ended this season really strong. I think they're going to take a lot of momentum into next season. You've got Liverpool under Arne Slot. Who knows what they're going to be like. You've got Aston Villa again. They finished 4th this year. What are they going to show next season? So, I mean, you've got a lot of fierce competition next year. The top 6, top 7 in the Premier League look so strong, don't they? And I think they're going to be a lot stronger next year than they were this year.
I could also say Newcastle are going to be better. I could also say Man United are probably they can't get much worse than they've been this season as well. All these teams are going to be up for it, but that's the Premier League. That's what it is. The competition's fierce. There's no point being scared or being fearful about it. You just got to face up to it and say, that's what we got to beat, and that's the competition. And I look at that and thinking, it's not going to be easy. It's obviously going to be, even getting top 4 will probably be difficult. But no reason being fearful of it. You got to embrace it, and you got to be up for that challenge.
Yeah.
And look, we got to do what we got to do in the summer, and then that's the only way we can close the gap.
Mm. Do you think there's any way? Do you think there's going to be a big dip maybe in Liverpool next season under Arne Slot?
Probably. I would assume so.
Mm.
Albeit, fair play to Klopp. I think he's really built the foundations of a good team following on. So it's maybe a different kind of end of an era compared to like Fergie and Wenger, where they left their teams in a bit of a rut, in a bit of a bad way. Well, I guess Fergie won the league, but it was an aging team. He got the most out of that team, and then it was always going to falter the next season without much investment. And then obviously Wenger was, he left that team in a way where it was on the downward trajectory for sure. So Klopp has left a bit of a younger, fresher team, maybe a team that's going to be a bit more ready to go rather than the other 2 teams. So maybe it won't be as massive dip as those other 2. But whether they're going to be in a title challenge, look, when a new manager comes after such a project, it's always going to be difficult following on from such an impressive manager. It's not to say I think Arne Slot's going to get sacked or not last season, but he's going to need time. He's not. I don't think he's going to win the league in his first season. I'll be shocked if he does that. So naturally, I do think there'll probably be a bit of a dip in Liverpool, but it's difficult to say.
Yeah, but you look at their squad, right? Their best players this season have been Mohamed Salah and probably Virgil van Dijk, right? And you know, there's been other standout performers then for sure. Alexis McAllister and a few others that have come to the fore for them this season. But if Virgil van Dijk and Salah, both their futures are up in the air this summer, and they're, you know, rumoured to follow Klopp out the door. I do think if Van Dijk and Salah both go this summer, that is a real season of transition when you've got three key figureheads that have been incredible for them for the past however long it's been. You know, I don't think they recover from that quickly, and potentially it could be an opportunity to leapfrog them next season.
Yeah, that's what we got to hope for. I don't think they're going to leave this summer. I think they're both going to stay, but I do think their futures are not going to be there, you know, for the next 5 years. So I do think, you know, you're going to be looking at them leaving in the near future, I would say. But I think they're going to want to help the team transition in a way to a new manager. I think they're going to be their mentality. I don't think they're going to leave. So I do think naturally it's always happens. I can't remember a scenario where a big figurehead has left like a Klopp-esque and it's gone smoothly the next season. I just can't remember a scenario where that's happened. So I think naturally it's going to be difficult. Doesn't mean in the long term they're not going to be good. It's just mean in that very first season,
it's transition.
There might be a few problems. Yeah,
it's transition. But anyway, that is our match preview for the Sheffield United game, last game of the season. Time to seal that Europa League spot. Let me know your score predictions in the comments section below. And on Sunday, you've got an old school watch along for you guys. Me and Sim in the studio on Sunday. There's no We Are Tottenham TV representatives up at Bramall Lane, unfortunately, on Sunday. But me and Sim are back on the watch alongs together. So come and tune in on Sunday. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. Like, subscribe, and comment. And as always, come on, you Spurs.